The way you talk to yourself sets the tone for everything. If your thoughts are harsh, your confidence reflects it. If your thoughts are hopeless, your outlook reflects it. Not because your diagnosis controls your life, but because the things that you tell yourself every day are influencing how you see yourself. The good news is, though, is that your thoughts are the one part of this that you can change. And when you change them, the way you feel about yourself starts to line up with them. So today, I'm going to walk you through how your mind shapes your emotional reality and how to change those patterns in a way that actually supports your healing instead of fighting it. So let's get into it on this episode of Herpes Wellness. Hi, I'm Kat Dupree, and I help people to navigate life with herpes. This episode is part 2 of the Shift Your Mindset About Herpes series. If you listened to the last episode, you know we talked about how a lot of your beliefs started long before your diagnosis and how important it is to understand where they came from. That's the foundation. Today, we're building on that by talking about the one thing that influences everything else, your thoughts. After my diagnosis, and honestly, even long before that, I never realized how much power my thinking had, and I never paid attention to the thoughts that were on rinse and repeat every day. Things like, "You're so stupid. What were you thinking? No one will ever want to be with you." And those were just a few of the things that kept going through my head over and over again. But once you understand where those beliefs came from, which is why going through the exercises in part 1, herpes is only skin deep, is so important. The next step is changing old patterns to reprogram your mind to believe something entirely different. Because herpes doesn't just bring up old thoughts. It could create new ones too. And if you don't catch them, those thoughts will shape how you see yourself without you even realizing it. Research shows that we have anywhere from 6,000 to 70,000 thoughts every single day, and most of them aren't new. They're on repeat, and many of them, believe it or not, are negative. Some studies suggest that up to 80% of our daily thoughts are either negative or the same ones that we had before. So if you're telling yourself things like, "I messed everything up," "I'm not good enough," or "my life is over now," your brain doesn't stop to question it, and it keeps running on the same hamster wheel over and over again. Then herpes comes along, and those thoughts don't just go in and out of your head. They take up residence and start shaping how you see yourself, how you date, how you show up, and what you believe is possible for yourself moving forward. And those thoughts, they don't just come out of nowhere. They're tied to your past or whatever emotional state you're currently in. So if you're scared, your thoughts will be filled with fear. And if you're ashamed, your thoughts will be filled with shame. Your mind isn't trying to play tricks on you, by the way. It's just trying to make sense of something that feels both shocking and overwhelming. But the problem is your mind doesn't know the difference between something that's true and something that isn't. It doesn't separate facts from fiction. It just repeats whatever feels the most familiar. So if the familiar thoughts you already have about yourself are negative, your emotional reality starts reflecting that. Now, I want to be really clear about something. It's true that some people don't want to be in a relationship with someone who has herpes. That's real, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But what isn't true is the meaning most people attach to that. One person saying no quickly turns into, "I'm not lovable, I'm damaged, and no one will want to be with me." And those aren't facts, those are just conclusions. Science shows that your brain processes thoughts, memories, and imagined scenarios using many of the same pathways it uses for real experiences. So when a thought repeats often enough, especially when it's paired with fear or rejection, your brain doesn't stop to question it. Not because it's accurate, but because it's familiar. And it's familiar because the stigma has been feeding your mind these messages long before you ever got diagnosed. So when thoughts like, I'm not lovable, I'm damaged, or no one will want me get like stuck in your head, your brain treats them like useful information, not assumptions. And this is why you start limiting yourself, not because herpes defines you, but because the story that formed after your diagnosis took over. And once you see that, you could start changing how much power your thoughts actually have. At some point, repeated thoughts stop feeling like thoughts and start feeling like who you are. This is when things get a little tricky, because now it's no longer, I'm having a bad thought. It becomes, this is just the truth about me now. This is how thoughts quietly turn into identity. You don't wake up one day and decide, I'm broken, or I'm less than, or something about me is wrong. Those beliefs form over time through repetition. They start feeling personal and permanent, like facts instead of opinions. And at some point, repeated thoughts stop feeling like thoughts and start feeling like who you are. And before you realize it, those thoughts turned into assumptions about your value and your worth and what kind of life you believe you're allowed to have. Now, let's talk about the point where things change. Not because your diagnosis changes, but because your understanding does. Up until this point, your thoughts felt automatic, like they were just a part of who you are, as if you didn't have a say in them at all. But the moment you see that your beliefs were learned and aren't facts, something important happens. You realize that you're not stuck with them. And this is where choice comes in. And I'm not talking about the kind of choice that says, just think positive or ignore how you feel. But it's the kind of choice that starts with awareness. Once you learn to spot a false or limiting belief instead of actually believing it to be true, it loses some of its power. It stops defining you and starts becoming something you can question. And once you can question it, you can start choosing new beliefs. And that's huge because you can't change what you don't notice. But once you notice it, you're no longer powerless. And this is the point where you stop moving through life based on old assumptions about yourself and start deciding what actually deserves your energy. Psychiatrist Viktor Frankl put it perfectly when he said, that between what happens to us and how we respond, there's a space. And in that space is our ability to choose. Modern psychology backs this up too. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT as it's known, is built on the understanding that thoughts are learned patterns, not permanent truths. When a thought goes unchallenged, it feels real. When it's noticed and questioned, its influence weakens. And let me be clear. Realizing you have a choice to change your beliefs isn't about denying what's real. It's about paying attention to your thoughts, your reactions, and the patterns you've been living in. That's where real change begins. Now that you know your thoughts aren't facts and you actually have a choice to change your beliefs, the question becomes, what do you do next? Because awareness alone doesn't change anything. What actually does, along with awareness, is deciding which thoughts you continue reinforcing and which ones you don't give as much attention to. Now, I want you to understand that the goal isn't to eliminate negative thoughts, because trust me when I tell you, they're still going to show up sometimes. What the goal is, though, is to catch them faster and choose what you want to reinforce instead. One tool that actually works for this is positive affirmations. And look, I know that might sound cheesy. And when I first heard about them, I was like, yeah, right. Trust me, I had some resistance at first, and you may too. But I want you to hear me out for a second. The reason positive affirmations work isn't because you're trying to convince yourself of something overnight. They work because, like I mentioned earlier, your brain is shaped by repetition. The same way repeated negative thoughts slowly become familiar, repeated new thoughts become familiar too, and can start replacing the negative ones. Your brain doesn't sort through things by truth. It responds to what it recognizes. So when you consistently introduce a different message, your mind starts treating that message as relevant instead of automatically dismissing it. So before we dive into how to make this work for you, I want you to know that this isn't about forcing positivity or pretending you feel something you don't. It's about giving your mind something new to work with so that your old beliefs don't keep defaulting in the background. Over time, your subconscious mind starts responding to what it's exposed to most. Research in neuroscience shows that repeated thoughts strengthen neural pathways, which is why familiar beliefs come back automatically, even when they don't serve you. When you introduce new thoughts consistently, your brain begins forming new pathways alongside the old ones. And eventually, those new thoughts stop feeling forced and start feeling familiar too. So here are a few simple ways to start weakening old patterns and strengthening new ones. Now, before you begin this exercise, you'll want to go ahead and purchase sticky notes. And you'll also want to make sure that they're the ones that have the full stickiness on the back. Don't get the ones that have that sticky stuff on the top strip because they'll just eventually fall off or curl up and then they become totally useless. So once you have them, the first step is to write down you are statements on them. Things like, you are worthy, you are loved, you are enough, you are strong, you are confident, and you are beautiful. I'll list a whole bunch of them in the description box for you to choose from, or you can just create your own. Now, the reason why you want to use you are statements instead of I am statements is because you are statements puts them in a third person perspective, which creates separation from your inner critic. This helps the words to slip past the resistance of your conscious mind and actually stick in your subconscious mind. When you say I am, your conscious mind often fights back because it looks at your current reality and thinks, there is no way in hell this is true. And it keeps you stuck in a loop of disbelief. So again, use you are statements to shift your mindset. Step 2 is to place the notes you created in places where you can actually see them. Your bathroom mirror, your fridge, your workspace, or even on your car dashboard. Anywhere they can sink into your subconscious mind. Step 3, do a search on YouTube for you are affirmation videos that you can listen to when you're walking, working out, or even in your car. And better yet, if you can find you are subliminal affirmation videos that you can listen to while you're falling asleep, that's even better. Why is this so powerful? Because when you're drifting off to sleep, your brain slips into what's called the theta state. And this is the place where your subconscious mind is wide open and ready to take things in. At the end of the day, this episode is about realizing that your thoughts aren't just passing through your mind. They shape how you feel about yourself, how you interpret your diagnosis, and how you move through your life. You learned that your mind doesn't respond to what's true. It responds to what's familiar and what gets repeated. And once you understand that, you stop taking every thought at face value. You start seeing which beliefs have been quietly influencing how you see yourself and which ones no longer deserve that kind of control. This isn't about pretending herpes doesn't affect your life. It's about deciding that it doesn't get to define your worth, your confidence, or your future. When you learn how to interrupt old thought patterns and reinforce new ones, you stop reacting from fear and you start responding from choice. And that's where things really begin to change. Well, that's all I have for today. I hope that you found this episode to be helpful. If you haven't subscribed yet, whether you're listening on audio or watching on YouTube, make sure you do that so that you don't miss future episodes, especially ones that are in this series. Also, if you're tired of navigating your condition alone, you can join us at Herpes Wellness. Our free support membership gives you access to a private online community with forums where you can ask questions, connect with others, and get support from people who truly get what you're going through. Also, if you're looking for support on the go, you can download the Herpes Wellness app, available in both the App Store and in Google Play. The links to our website and the app are listed in the description box below. And if you're concerned about privacy, we've got you totally covered. The app icon and push notifications say H Wellness. So if someone happens to see your screen, you won't disclose your status unintentionally. And if you're enjoying the podcast or if you have something you'd like to share, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you the next time on the Herpes Wellness Podcast. Bye for now.